Is Google a search engine? That question seems rather obvious, but I'd like to proceed by analogy to explain to you why sometimes Google may fail you. And so I'm going to use three analogies. The first one is that Google is a thermometer. The second one is Google is a mirror. And the third one is that Google is sunglasses. So how can Google fail you? How can Google not be a search engine? The first one is it's a thermometer. Google, as a tool, measures popularity. That's what it does. It looks at the words you put into the search engine, and it determines what pages it thinks are popular, and it serves you this result. So let me give you an example. If I search for Concordia, here we go. Obviously, Google is going to return Concordia University as the first result. Why do I think it's obvious? Well, I'm sitting on campus right now. So as I'm feeding the search term to Google, Google is listening to the IP address, to the internet address the request comes from. It knows my computer is located on campus at Concordia because of the way internet protocols work. So it knows it's coming from Concordia University, and so Google is probably saying, well, this person probably wants to have the university's website. So it's giving me concordia.ca as the first result, as opposed to any other university which has Concordia in its name, and there are plenty of those out there, or any other meanings Concordia could have, because Concordia as a term means something. So how else does Google determine the popularity of a website? Well, it takes websites, it crawls the internet with its spiders, it sends computer programs to download pages, and then it analyzes them. It's looking at which sites link to it, and also which site is linked from that specific website. The more authoritative each website is, so let's say if you get links from government agencies or universities, that boosts up your PageRank score. PageRank is the numerical value that Google determines as a popularity measure. Other important things are how often people click on the link when it's returned by the search engine. All these different variables means that Google can guess the popularity of a website. Now, the important point here is that popularity is not what you're using anymore. In a university setting, in an academic setting, what you're looking for is authoritative information, quality of evidence. And so if you're looking for a TV show or your favorite Pokemon characters, Google's fine, just plug them in. Popularity is a great measure to access websites that will give you the information you need. But popularity in a university setting, not so much, because you need the best stuff, right? And popularity and authority don't sometimes overlap. So that's a very important point. And of course, I'll be explaining to you how to achieve quality evidence and how to find authoritative information in following videos, but I want to talk about Google now. So the first point about Google is that it's a thermometer that measures popularity, but what you need is authority, so there's a disconnect there. Second point about how Google can fail you is that Google is a mirror. Google isn't giving you simply results based on this abstract measure of popularity called the PageRank algorithm. It's actually listening to you specifically, and it's building a profile of you. So if you have a Gmail account and you're logged on, Google knows who you are. And if you don't have a Gmail account, it's actually trying to see a combinations of ways to figure out who you are. For example, what kind of browser do you use? What kind of plugins do you have in your browser? What's your IP address? And other metrics like that will help Google build a profile of you specifically. And so what happens is that it caters popular results based on what Google thinks you need. Ellie Pariser has called this the filter bubble, which means that you're in this bubble of information and Google is only feeding you what you think it needs. So you're actually never breaking out of what you already know or what you're already comfortable with. This is a rather problematic issue because in a university, in an academic setting, you're trying to discover new things about the world. You're trying to break out of your filter bubble. And Google is giving you nothing but a filter bubble. And so Google is a mirror reflecting back onto you. in that sense, you almost have to train your Google to tell it what kind of information you may want. And there are ways to do that. I'll do that in the next video, how to train your Google. But in this point, the important thing to remember is Google is a mirror onto your own searches, and it gives you what you think it needs. I'll put some links in the description of this video to learn more about filter bubbles and Ellie Parizer's work. Last point about how Google can fail you, the third point, is that think of Google like sunglasses, right? So the sun, this bright thing out there, is sending out a lot of information in the universe, but Google only can see part of it. It's a blind. Google only covers the free web. When its spiders are crawling on the free web, it can only pick up websites that allow it in. Right? So there are websites that use a file called robot.txt, which blocks Google from indexing its website. For example, a lot of federal government websites from the Canadian government are not indexed by Google. Specifically, Statistic Canada does not allow Google to crawl its website. And so if you're looking for, statistics about Canadians, they're on the free web. They're on the Statistic Canada's website for free. You could search for them, but not from Google, because it doesn't allow Google in. Another point that Google doesn't cover is anything that's protected by copyright that hasn't been released by their owner. Of course, I'm taking out all the illegal content here, but the point is, if it's protected by copyright and it's not on the free web, it exists and may be useful, but it's not in Google. Think here, newspaper articles, research papers, academic papers, books, business reports, market reports. All of these things are protected by copyright, and the copyright owners of these works have not released them on the free web. Google may index them, Google may know they exist, but you can't read them, you can't access them. And that's where a library comes in, right? And I'll talk about that extensively in other videos. But the point here is that think of Google as sunglasses, as a blind. It's only giving you partial information in your information landscape, specifically information that is on the free web, which is excluding a lot of really interesting information that is protected by copyright, that is owned by others, and that are available under private websites. Last point about the bias or sunglasses argument or analogy is that there are a lot of secrets out there. Secrets, yes. Google doesn't cover secrets. There are bits of information that are out there that are just not disclosed by their owners. I'll give you an example. Financial records of privately held companies. We don't know what they are. They exist. The people who have access to them can use them, those data, but not through Google, right? So that's another point about Google. So is Google a search engine? Yeah, of course. I mean, you search through the web, but it has three main drawbacks that I want you to consider. The first one that I talked about is Google as a thermometer. Google measures popularity, and what you need is authority or quality of evidence. And sometimes there's a disconnect between what's popular and what's authoritative. Second point is that Google is a mirror onto yourself. It is returning results specifically for you as an individual, and it keeps you into an information bubble, right? The filter bubble, because Google applies this filter onto the results so that it caters only to you. So you may be missing out some interesting, important information because of that, if you haven't trained your own Google. Last point is Google as sunglasses or as a blind, shielding you for things that are not on the free web. And so yes, you will always find results because Google, there's just tons of information on the free web, but you may be missing out on stuff that is not on the free web that is absolutely relevant for you. And by the way, this is why as a librarian, I'm not afraid of Google, because as long as people want to make money from their copyrighted works, I'll have a job, because a library is like a club. It's like purchasing all of this copyrighted content and providing it to you for free. And so we're actually a complement to Google. The library supplements what's missing in Google. And of course, you should be using your academic library for your research, and keep watching these videos because I'll get into that in the next few videos.